starving kids to own the libs while building a ballroom for a wannabe king. This is what passes for morality now. Republicans call themselves pro-life, pro-family, and Christian while letting millions of children in this country go hungry for the sake of a fucking political stunt. They drape themselves in scripture and the flag, but turn hunger into leverage and cruelty into a spectacle. 41 million Americans depend on SNAP to survive. 16 million of them are children. Children whose futures could be secured in a single moment of conscience with just a spark of grace from Congress. The money's there. They just refuse to use it because for today's Republican Party, suffering is strategy. Starvation is a feature, not a bug. They had zero hesitation making Trump's tax cut for the 1% permanent. There were no sermons about debt, no hand-wringing for the deficit, but food for hungry kids? Suddenly, fiscal discipline matters. So Republicans smile for the cameras, recite their lines, and kids go to bed hungry in the richest nation on earth. And I know that kind of hunger. It's real. It's in the body, the chest, the skin. You stop praying for miracles and start praying for enough. Enough gas to get to work, enough milk to last, enough strength to smile when your kid asks you for something you can't give. I have pushed half-empty carts down grocery aisles, smelling of abundance and humiliation, counting meals and quietly selling family jewelry to keep the lights on. I did my best, making pancakes for dinner, lighting candles when the power went out so it felt like an adventure instead of a warning. But every day felt fragile. One more bill, one more disaster, and it all could break. Still, I was lucky. We had a roof, we had laughter, but I'll never forget the night spent pleading for mercy from a utility company, praying for just one more week before the heat or the lights went out. That kind of fear rewires you. It doesn't end with the call, you carry it, and it changes the shape of your hope. When the child tax credit came through, it felt like the world exhaled. The difference between mere survival and the chance to say yes to your kids. Democrats made that happen. Compassion became policy. It was mercy, not shame. Republicans would look at that now and scoff, call it weakness, call it freeloading, twist struggle into spectacle. They wear the cross but miss its meaning, worshiping golden ballrooms while calling it salvation. Their faith is performance. Their miracles are tax cuts for donors. And the rest of us, we can just go hungry. So if you're listening, please call your congressperson, call your senators and ask, how dare they look away? How dare they trade a child's hunger for a donor's smile? How dare they call this patriotism or faith? Because our kids are watching, and history will remember not just who inflicted the pain, but who stood by in silence. Today's episode starts now. Today on SANE-ish, we're moving from digital outrage to real-world action with Joe Gallina, one of the most influential digital strategists and political influencers in American politics today, and also my very good friend. Joe is the founder and president of Call to Activism, the progressive media powerhouse, reaching millions every day on social platforms, and our very own Siren Network. Joe left a successful legal career on the day of Trump's inauguration in 2017 to commit himself full-time to activism, building viral truth campaigns and organizing millions across every major platform to counter right-wing disinformation and drive grassroots civic engagement. Today, he shares practical advice on going online to engagement to real-world impact and why every citizen has a role in defending democracy. If you're ready to do more than just scroll and seethe, this is your roadmap for showing up, speaking out, and taking action. We'll chat with Joe in just a minute. But first, I don't talk about this a lot, but after my kids were born, I weighed in at 238 pounds. I'm 5'4" and a half. So that was a lot on my frame. And it was really, really, really hard to lose the weight. It took me about a year to drop 100 pounds, but I did it. That said, it's not that easy to maintain for a lot of us. And by the way, focus and energy on top of trying to keep your diet straight so that you don't gain weight is really difficult. I'm sure you've heard that GLP-1 drugs are all the rage for people trying to lose a few pounds or sharpen their focus. And that's great for some people, and no judgment. That's awesome. But they're not an all-natural solution, which is what I want. That's why I am so happy to welcome Veracity as one of our new partners. That's because Veracity is an all-natural way to slim down, get energized, and sharpen your focus. In case you didn't know, Veracity is revolutionizing health by tackling the root cause of so many issues with metabolism. And with Veracity's drug-free, clinically proven, and doctor-formulated solutions, you can support your body's needs to live your healthiest life. Listen, if your goal is weight loss, try Veracity's Metabolism Ignite, the #1 doctor recommended GLP-1 booster and GLP-1 alternative with no side effects and no allergens. Metabolism Ignite is a natural, safe, plant-based aid that results in an 85% reduction in hunger and is clinically proven to lose, on average, 9 pounds in 90 days, which is a very safe amount of weight to lose. Imagine you're stressed out and exhausted. Then you try Metabolism Ignite for a few months and boom, you lose some weight and even have enough energy to start running 5Ks. By the way, Veracity isn't just for weight loss. Their products can also help you manage stress levels, your gut health, burnout, and more. So make the switch to GLP-1s the natural way. Head to veracityselfcare.com and use the code JOJO for up to 45% off your order. Once again, that's veracityselfcare.com for up to 45% off, and make sure you use my promo code JOJO so that they know I sent you. It is so good to see my friend Joe Gallina. Joe, we
Hi, Joe.
go way back. At this point, like in this world that we're in, like we are long friends because we go back to simpler, more beautiful, more pure times of the first season of this shit show. I think you and I met online in DMs, not in some weird way, but like 2018, maybe? Is that even
Yeah,
possible?
so long ago. It's crazy. It's just we've been in this fight a long time.
Yeah, and we've had our ups and downs. We've certainly seen the top of the mountain because we got Joe Biden there, and then everything went the way it went. We don't need to relitigate all of that, but here we are, like almost a year to the day of Election Day 2024, and we're on day 29 of a government shutdown. This is the second longest, very narrowly the second longest, almost the longest. The last two that were almost as long, the longest one, sorry, and the one almost as long, all of them belong to Donald Trump.
Go figure. Go figure. The guy who literally sucks at navigating every single political issue we've ever had would suck at shutdowns too. It's really surprising.
But like this is the thing. When people were talking about how masterful he was with our economy, he inherited Obama's economy and then trashed it. But not just COVID. Like manufacturing was on the wane, jobs were on the wane, the economy was moving in the wrong direction without the pandemic, and then you get the pandemic and you hand it to that fucking moron, not just a moron, sociopathic moron. He bungles it and leaves office as the second worst president on jobs since Hoover. By the way, also added the largest number to our debt and deficit of any president in our history. And then they'll put him back in office, the guy who bankrupted casinos, and they expect some kind of magically different result. And here we are, day 29, and America First President Donald Trump is just coming back from China. Sorry. Yeah, he was in China, right?
Yeah, China.
Yeah. So he does this East Asian tour, and he's not in America. And then you and I were talking before we started recording. He's coming back calling himself some great hero because he's negotiated a deal with China. But let's talk about that, Joe, because he's not a hero.
No, it's like as you said, the arsonist who lights the fire and then calls the fire department, but he's the fire department too, and then he puts out the fire that he created, and then he says, "I put out the fire. I'm a hero. Nobel Peace Prize, please." Right? It's like, and that's what happened here. So he started with the tariffs against China, ridiculous tariffs, right? Slams them, and so of course they retaliate, which is to be expected, and basically they canceled all of the American soybean orders. And so our soybean farmers actually found that 90% of their exports were to China. So this was like literally propping up American farmers, our relationship with China. Trump tariffs them to kingdom come. They pull all the orders. And now the soybean farmers are literally finding that they have to pull their crops because they can't just let them rot because no one is buying them. They're shredding them up, using them as manure. They are not selling them, all because of Trump's tariffs. So this trip where Trump gets an Air Force One at taxpayers' expense, goes to China in this big extravagant, I'm going to go save the soybean farmers effort, which wouldn't have been a problem if he didn't put the tariffs in the first place. Now he's created a deal. They announced the deal that they're going to start buying more soybeans slowly. It is not better than how it was before Trump was president. So this
Right.
entire thing is a crock.
Right, but this is what he does. You're right. He creates the crisis. Sometimes he manufactures the crisis, but often he creates the actual crisis and then brings us back partway from the edge of the side of the building and then proclaims himself the one who saved our lives. And it's like, well, no, but net, we're worse off than we were. And those soybean farmers, in many cases, our good friend Jess Piper talks about this all the time. They're not coming back to soybean farming because it's too volatile, because now they've lost everything and we had to bail them out. Our government and those soybean farmers don't want bailouts. They want to sell their crops. They were selling their crops to China. He ruined it. They had to get rid of their crops. Many of them are going to go to other crops, but they're just going to leave whole hog. So it's and then he calls himself some kind of champion, and it's like you wonder how he failed at everything, from a fake university to steaks to water to airlines to board games to casinos. Like, you wonder, right? It's a real mystery, real head scratcher here. And everything in our economy is moving in the wrong direction. Everything.
Literally everything. If you look at numbers, inflation is up, unemployment is up, the consumer price index is up, gasoline prices are up. So literally everything is worse than it was when Biden was president. I don't think we hear about it enough. I think,
Right.
that's why I'm so grateful for you, Joe, and others who are actually beating the drum and saying these things so people hear them, because most people just hear the lies.
Which is crazy to me, because you and I were, as we've talked about, we've been in this fight a long time, and we were lockstep in the run up to 24 on the economy moving in the right direction, right? Every metric was moving in the right direction. We were the envy of our peer nations in terms of our COVID recovery, largely because of Joe Biden's expert stewardship, right? Like, this is the thing he doesn't get credit for. In the midst of things moving in the right directions, Americans were being told, oh no, things are terrible, things are awful, eggs are too expensive, which, yeah, sure, eggs were expensive. Yes, inflation was up. Much of this was because of COVID, because Donald Trump bungled COVID. He crashed our supply chains. The ripple worldwide from his failure, Joe Biden had to grapple with, and we were still in recovery, but we were moving in the right direction. But the American people were being sold a lie, which is that things are bad, things are not going in the right direction. And they're like, well, I just bought a third car, but yeah, you know what? My pizza was $18. So they're right. Meanwhile, now the opposite is true. Donald Trump is telling them that everything is great, that we're the hottest country in the world. But that's the opposite of the truth. And I think Jess Piper, also in a group chat that we're in, said that, or maybe she posted this on Substack, an 84-year-old lifelong Republican that she knows asked her where the next No King rally was, Republican who hates Trump, because of SNAP, because she's like, I cannot believe 1 out of 8 Americans are going to go without nutrition assistance as of November 1st. So I think the American people this time are like, well, you cannot tell me things are better than they are, because I feel this, right? Wouldn't you say?
100%. This is like really bad. And
Yeah.
it's a tough position for Democrats. I won't lie, because
Yeah.
they're throwing a huge assault. They're fighting the whole, it's the Schumer shutdown. It's the Democratic, they could just sign this garbage CR as it is, even though it'll strip, it'll increase the premiums, millions of people, probably destroy hospitals in rural cities, and rural towns rather. So please just sign it so that we could go on destroying the country. And Democrats are like, no, you have to extend the ACA subsidies. Don't destroy Medicaid. Continue to help fund things like SNAP during the shutdown, which they could, and they're not legally. They have a legal mechanism to do it, which is what they did in 2018, and they're refusing. So it's not easy to be Democrats, but I say, like, there's hills to die on. I think healthcare is always the hill to live on. Like, there's just so much destruction that will happen if Democrats capitulate and just allow the CR to pass without an extension of the subsidies. Like, you're talking a domino effect of healthcare to the likes of which maybe our country has never seen. Because when premiums go up and you start losing people and they start losing insurance, you get people showing up to hospitals that don't have insurance, and they have to give them treatment, which is the law, and that's good. But then they end up with these oversaddled costs. You start seeing hospitals close. Like, it's not just theoretical. We've seen it happen. We know what happens. And this is going to have dire effects. If you close one hospital in a rural town in Georgia, by the way, there's already been two, Senator Ossoff said, when you start closing hospitals, that kills the entire medical infrastructure to get someone to the hospital. So if I'm sitting in my house and I have a massive heart attack and my wife calls 911, it's going to take maybe even an extra hour for the ambulance to get to your house. Then you have to go an hour to the hospital in the next town. People are going to die. So it
Yeah.
basically eliminates fast care.
Right.
And isn't this worth a fight if we know that tens of thousands, maybe even more than that, of people are definitely going to die unless they just use their little pen and extend the subsidies? It's absurd.
And the thing is too, like they're trying to gaslight people into not understanding that. Even Dr. Oz said yesterday that this 115% increase to premiums that has been cited by multiple sources, right? And that's some places are going to see 300% increases in their premiums. Dr. Oz said it wasn't true. A $13 increase in your premiums is what's actually true. That's a lie. That's a lie. But to your point also, not only are people going to die, but think about the ripple effects on local economies. On you shut down this hospital that employs people, and then now you're talking about those people have to go somewhere that they can get a job. So now the local grocery store, the local gas station, the local any service, plumber, electrician, you name it. Now they have no one that needs their services, and everything dries up. Jess Piper again lives in Missouri. She has talked about this. She's like, if you want a roadmap for what Republicans would like the entire country to look like, come to Missouri, where they have basically abandoned towns, completely just abandoned them. For Jess to get to the grocery store is an hour, for her kids to get to school is an hour. They only go to school 4 days a week because their government has abandoned them, because that's what Republicans in super red states have done. That's a roadmap for what the Republicans federally would like to do to this country, and they don't care. They've long proven they don't care about the American people living or dying. They don't care about children starving. Literally right now, I'm so incensed by this. You and I are parents. You would move heaven and earth to feed your baby girl. I would sell my toes. I would sell pictures of my toes. I would sell someone sucking on my toe. Listen, MAGA, don't get any ideas. But seriously, to feed my children, I've faced this situation in my real life where I did not have enough money to give my kids all the food that they wanted. Republicans right now said it out loud. Mike Johnson said yesterday, or maybe it was the day before, but the story broke yesterday, that when the SNAP cuts go into effect, the pain is going to go up to a 10. And that's going to be what they're going to use to make the Democrats finally cave. Think about that. Christian Mike Johnson is talking about starving people just enough that the moral Democrats have to give in and give them more pain and suffering for the American people.
It's so imperative that we win this narrative. Like, what you're saying is gospel, it's the truth. I really hope that everyone listening takes this in, and please spread this information as much as you can. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your spouse, because they are winning with this truth vacuum, I call it, where Democrats tend to struggle with just saying things easily palatable, just here, boom, 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 boom. They do it, but they're lying. So you have Mike Johnson coming out saying
Yeah.
Republicans have done more for healthcare than any other party in the history of America. You have Dr. Oz, like you said, premiums are only going to go up $13. It's a lie. We need the same apparatus on the Democratic side telling you the truth so that you could tell people the truth. And exactly what you said is the truth. And here's, it gets even worse because they can fund SNAP during a
Yep.
shutdown. There is a law that passed that gives them funds, to emergency funds, billions of dollars to fund SNAP so that during the shutdown negotiations, SNAP will be taken care of. It has to be signed by the president. Trump said no. So they are creating this pressure that legally shouldn't exist because SNAP should be funded. And then at the same time, the Democrats didn't make a list of demands that they needed before they signed the CR. It is one thing. It's to extend the ACA subsidies that expired, to postpone it to another at least few years until they fix the healthcare system. And they are refusing to do that. And they call it a clean CR. because it doesn't include ACA subsidies. It's not a clean CR when millions of lives are impacted. So it is not the Democratic shutdown. It is their shutdown. And we just have to keep telling them that.
Correct. And you and I are trying very hard to build this apparatus, to your point, where we get this message out, where we get these messages out, where we push through. Look, this is a tale as old as time about a lie traveling around the world before the truth can even get its pants on. This is the truth. It's like a bad restaurant review, you tell 10 people. A good restaurant review, maybe you tell 5. For whatever reason, that's how things go. And Republicans have proven they're shameless liars, and so that's just what they do. By the way, I just don't understand why the Democrats aren't pushing this thing. The Republicans had no problem making permanent tax cuts for the super rich. People who are like, should we get a third yacht, Johnny? I don't know if that bidet clashes with the toilet. Like, they get a permanent tax cut. That shit don't trickle down. Don't fucking piss on down my back and tell me it's raining. They had no problem. They were not clutching their pearls about that. But when it's the regular, everyday American people who need to, I don't know, the luxury of living, they're like, oh, no. We have fiscal responsibility, folks. We need to prioritize, and we just can't. We're bloated and inflated, and our budget just can't seem to. Bullshit. And by the way, in that horrible bill, you know this very well too, are cuts to SNAP and food banks. And if that right there doesn't tell you that they don't care, they're fighting the Democrats so that they can pass a budget that takes more food and health care away from American people, by and large, who voted for them. The state of Oklahoma, 600,000 people in the state of Oklahoma rely on SNAP. They pretty much all look like Mark Wayne Mullen, right? I mean, not all. Hello, Oklahoma. I love you, Oklahoma. I need to know what's happening on that panhandle because I'm a little obsessed with it, but you all voted for Donald Trump. And they are getting hurt by this. And the Democrats should be saying they had no problem with that tax cut. They had no problem making that permanent for people who will never, ever, ever struggle for food. But you, nope.
So, I mean, talk about virtuous, right? Like, we are not fighting just for democratic principles, meaning like
Right.
Democrats will benefit. We're fighting for every single American. Democrats are fighting for even the people in the reddest Trump district in the whole world. I care about them losing rural hospitals. I think we care more about the lives of Trump supporters than even maybe Trump supporters do. And that's a hard pill to swallow, but it's a fight worth having. I just look at all the white in my beard. I'm only 16. And like, I have been in this fight for so long. Look what it's doing to us. But yeah, I mean, it's too ridiculous for words. Like, I cannot sleep. I can't sleep knowing that people are going to die. I think of, and it's a thing of empathy and sympathy. And, I think of my grandparents and like, how would I feel if they lived in a town that would need an hour to reach them in case of an emergency? It's too shitty for words. And I'm so grateful to be in the same ecosystem with you, Joe. You're doing such an awesome job. But it's like, this is why we do what we do, because the mainstream media is not answering this moment. And we're still in this troop gap. And and what they do is like the old style of media, the Walter Cronkite. I miss those days, but they're not for these days. Those are for policy debates, not when you have a political party that spews lies literally every second of every minute. And, you'll still see the Chiron, Donald Trump says the sky's purple. But there's no context there. They don't give you the commentary. They have to feign balance. And so then you ended up with these talking heads on CNN and there's both sides and bullshit where it's only really the new media. It's these platforms like yours, like Siren, Call to Activism, even Midas Touch. What we're trying to do is we're painting the picture to provide the context. It's no. Donald Trump said that it's purple, but it's fucking blue. And he just lied right to your face. And that's what we just have to keep doing again and again.
And also, it's interesting because, God, the both sides, right? Like, it's like, oh, we're going to hear from the person who knows that the planet is round, and now we're going to pivot to the person who says the planet is the Earth is flat. And they do that shit all the time, and you don't have to platform the Earth is flat person because you brought on the person who actually said the truth about the Earth being round. But the thing too about what we do and where legacy media is not meeting the moment is we're regular people. We don't come from some corporate sponsored, talking points to make sure that we satisfy, big whatever. We're regular people who live real lives, who are trying to meet this moment because we care. Like you said, we care about our own family and our own friends, and nobody in our circle of people that we value or love is expendable. But also, like, why wouldn't we fight so that somebody else, some other Joe Gallina out there in the universe that we don't even know, maybe they voted for Donald Trump, maybe there are people in their sphere that aren't expendable. Why wouldn't I fight for them? And we talk to each other and to our audiences the way we would talk to our friends, because this is real. It's not abstract. This is palpable. This is life and death. This is our children being able to go to school and not get shot. That's the kind of shit that keeps me up at night, and I can't be quiet about, because talking heads on CNN and MSNBC and CBS, which is garbage now, like, they're not answering to the American people, and they're not meeting the moment because they're not really in the fray. You know what I mean? And there's that humanity that is absent. And by the way, it just hit me that it's the first time that you and I have had a face-to-face or screen-to-screen conversation since he fucking ripped down the East Wing. And the first time in my entire life as a human being that I walked through those doors was with you. You and I went to the White House the first time in my life I'd ever been inside the White House. And we met Joe Biden that day, which is also absolutely insane. And we could talk about that. But you and I I'm not going to speak for you, but you know how emotional I got every time. We got to go there a couple of times together, which is crazy and unbelievably privileging. But, like, can I just check in with you about what that felt like and feels like, and what being there meant to you? Because I know I took the video of you talking to him. I know what you talked to him about, and it gave me chills. But it's gone, Joe. It's gone.
That day, I mean, was obviously a special day. I feel like your dad was on your shoulder. I
Yeah.
feel like my grandpa was on my shoulder.
Yeah.
My Italian immigrant grandpa who used to say, "Someday I want to see you working in the White House," and uh here we were walking in the White House, and it was just the pure majesty. And I recognized the pictures of the East Wing and those doors that would open in that grand hallway where they always used to dress it for the holidays, and the music playing. And there's such a majesty to that office, and it's really tragic to think that Donald Trump not only doesn't represent any of the values you'd want to see in a president, but I felt like seeing those pictures of the East Wing being demolished was such a symbol of like what Donald Trump represents, and just like this tear down of everything good and everything that meant something to our country. And if you could write down, all the bad things and all the good things about America, and the stuff that we ascribe to be Donald Trump is just the opposite of anything that's good. And
Yeah.
for me, I felt like it was an assault on all things good. And that day will always remain in my heart. It was a day that you and I think more than anything just felt validated, that we were trying so hard to spread this narrative, to do what we can to help Democrats effectively communicate and stop the nuance that Americans weren't connecting with, and sticking to the facts and sticking to the things that Americans care about. And we were finally being recognized. And like that room, if anything, that part of the White House represented that. And so
Yeah.
seeing it being torn down was deeply personal.
Yeah.
But now I'm even extra pissed because I know how much it costs to tear it down, and I know how much, I think it was 350 million for the tear down. And now you're talking about the building it, and the idea that it's such a waste of money to build a grand ballroom that he's going to slap his name all over the place with fake gold all over the place. It's just too gross, while people are literally going to starve. And I believe starting tomorrow is
Yeah.
when SNAP beneficiaries are going to start seeing their cards empty. This is a crisis, and
Yeah.
it's too cruel for words, really.
Yeah. And this this ballroom, this ballroom, the juxtaposition of, it's such a let them eat cake moment. Like, I know that sounds hyperbolic, but it I mean, to your point, like, people are literally going to be starving in the richest country on earth, when we could, the Republicans, snap of a finger, snap, no pun intended, could make that fund, make those funds available in a minute, tomorrow, so that no one has any interruptions at all. But he spent 350 million to tear something down that didn't belong to him so that he could build something that nobody, none of us, none of the people, none of the, is it 40 million people in this country, 16 million children who need SNAP benefits, none of them are going to get to dine or dance in that ballroom. It's not for the American people. It's for his legacy, because he doesn't have any real legitimate thing that he can say he ever accomplished, because all he ever does is destroy. So if he builds big fucking erections all over the planet with his teeny little mushroom peen and slaps his stupid name on it, then he thinks that the rest of the world and history itself will look upon him as this great champion, when it's nothing. It's smoke and mirrors. It's literally, it's fake. It is an ostentatious display. It is sound and fury signifying nothing. It's bullshit. But I'll tell you what, I have a family member, I'm not going to say who. This is a person who has been a Republican their entire life. Couldn't pull the trigger on that motherfucker, but Republican nonetheless. And I have a very, very locked down family chat where we do not talk about politics because we don't agree. And this family member said, you know what? I got to tell you, this bullshit ballroom, while federal workers are being furloughed, while the military is not getting paid, while people can't get fed, that this bullshit ballroom should be all people talk about, because this is too far. And I think that that's also something the Democrats have to keep pushing, that's important. He's literally shitting on you, hoping you don't give a crap about him getting a ballroom and $1 billion airplane and Kristi Noem getting 2 private jets. And he's telling you, let them eat cake. Well, we know how that turned out. So, I mean, I don't fucking know, but like, don't you think that kind of like that collision, that hypocritical collision of what he's giving himself and making everybody else subjected to is like, should be a big message for us?
It's gross. I think there's some psychology to it, like part of this game and in being able to provide narrative for the Democrats, I've had to study the dark side. I've had to look at how Trump supporters consume information and how
Yeah.
they're perceiving information. And I think that there tends to be a streak of uh there's I'm trying to think of a way to best say it, but like in the evangelical community, there's an emphasis towards opulence as sort of like being a gift from God, right? And that's how like the televangelists get ahead and they make millions and billions of dollars and buy private jets. And it's this self-fulfilling, it's like, oh, okay, well, God must really agree with this person because look how rich they are. And so there's almost like this wealth worship, right, that happens. And there's this streak that exists in the right wing where even though they're not receiving it themselves, they see wealth and opulence as sort of like an extension of success. And Trump has really understood that, and I think he exploits it. And what he does is he exploits this idea of opulence amongst his own followers and his communities and the gold watches and buy this because if you wear this, the Trump signature and the gold. And I
Yeah.
think like the ballroom kind of fits in that general category of like, oh, he said that he was a builder and he's a rich guy and a billionaire's building this big glamorous ballroom for us. And it's just, it defies logic. It defies reason. There's really no way to quite understand why they would ever cheerlead it. But I think like our best bet is to do what your family member, is to stick to those themes and like explain that, yeah, people are hurting. And this is in direct opposition to that. Now,
Yeah.
every person who loses healthcare, tie it to that ballroom. Every single person that's going to lose their SNAP benefits, go look at the ballroom. It's a perfect contradiction.
Yeah.
But I fear that there's this streak in the Trump supporting sort of community that also exists where they just want to see him wreak havoc. First of all, they get off on the idea of him destroying stuff that's part of the government. And then also this wealth and opulence, which is such bullshit. Like Donald Trump was never a wealthy man, really, really, until now. Everything that he ever said he had, he was exaggerating. He did have
Yeah.
Trump Tower, which he inherited, and he did a smart deal by buying a building in Manhattan, but he's still literally $1 billion in the hole. He doesn't pay taxes because he has this offset that New York Times exposed that literally owes $1 billion because of his losses. Now suddenly he's a billionaire. He's making $800 million because of crypto that is mostly foreign lifted, which is the most corrupting, I think, in history. We're talking Richard Nixon. This
Yeah.
fucking blows that out of the universe.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry to go on a tangent, but
No, no, no.
I think it's all relative that money and politics and Donald Trump are going to be together, and just like this ballroom's another example of that shit.
Yeah. So in closing, when, not if, when we get back in power, because I'm not gonna empower the thoughts that we won't. What do you want to do with that stupid fucking ballroom? Do you want to tear it down? Do you want to repurpose it? What do you want to do with it? Because I have two thoughts. I think if we do tear it down, that we turn it into the Berlin Wall. I mean, let people have at it with spray paint and sledgehammers, and then they can take home a little piece of it and say that they tore it down. Or we turn it into a Jose Andres soup kitchen / Hague war crimes criminal court / Ukrainian refugee hotel. But I haven't decided on which one I prefer yet. What are your thoughts on it?
Those are all great ideas. My wife Cosima, who you know very well, also believes it should be a soup kitchen. They're just like yeah, I mean there are those that say rip it down and bulldoze it. I just don't want his name on it. I heard some ideas that like the next Democratic president should purposely change the name, and someone said call it the Martin Luther King Ballroom. Something like that. But yeah, I think it should serve the people. I would love to have a space in the White House that is open to the public, and heavily secure, but maybe a walking history museum or something like that could be open to the public. I would much rather that
I like that
than a
idea.
ballroom. Yeah, than a fucking ballroom for billionaires and those slimy backroom deals that we need less of in politics. And it's just too gross.
He's getting rich building the ballroom. Like, that's the other thing. Like, these are private donors who are greasing his pockets. And by the way, Hunter Biden, Don Jr.'s drone company, just got the contract from the Department of Defense. I refuse to call it the Department of War. I will never call it the Department of War. My father works at the Department of Defense for 50 years. I'm never going to call it the Department of War. But they were talking about Hunter Biden selling paintings and working for Burisma, and Don Jr., they're just flaunting it. And it's in this shit stew. It's like the last thing that anybody has even time in their day to talk about because there's just too much. Flood the zone.
And there was that thing that came out that said somebody did an independent analysis of President Biden and found that he had not profited a single dime while in office. The contract, couldn't be any more.
$800 million since January of 2025. Donald Trump, $800 million. Not to mention what all of his spawn have gotten. He was making deals on hot mics with other leaders about his family. Y'all, I cannot. Joe, it is so good to talk to you. So good to see you. I had realized midway through this conversation that that this East Wing that you and I walked through together, that we walked through with your wife Cosimo before right after your beautiful baby girl was born, that is gone, and that this is the first time you and I have gotten to talk. So that hit me pretty hard. But that was a really magical day, and I'm sad, super sad. But we will rebuild it.
Yes, we will. We'll have more magical days ahead. I know it.
Exactly. We're going to lean into that energy. Thank you so much, Joe. It's great to talk to you, as always.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for killing it. We appreciate your voice so much.
If what you heard today fired you up, now's the time to step off the sidelines. Subscribe to SANE-ish, share this episode with your community, and head to Call to Activism to plug in and get moving. We need you to donate, volunteer, or simply share the truth, because every single action tips the scale. Democracy is not a spectator sport. It's a relay, and the baton is in your hands. Stay loud, stay active, and until next time, stay sane-ish.